Yes, I'm still here, Hollywood. And coming up on today's episode...
He's been a doctor, a rancher, a sci-fi hero, and a romantic leading man. A familiar face on our television screens for more than 4 decades. From primetime dramas that defined the 80s to family favorites still airing today. His career has been marked by versatility, resilience, and longevity in an industry that doesn't often allow for it. This is Still Here Hollywood. I'm Steve Kmetko. Join me with today's guest, the man who first won America's Heart as Gonzo on Trapper John M.D., Gregory Harrison. Gregory, how did you get into acting?
Okay.
You look like you should be an athlete.
Do I?
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of my dream when I was young. I was born and raised on Catalina Island. The Chicago Cubs used to use Catalina Island as their spring training ground.
Yeah, the Wrigleys had
The Wrigleys owned the island,
right.
and they owned the Chicago Cubs. Hit the mic. And they used the island as spring training from like 1928 until the war, till World War II. And about 41, I think it was, 1941 or early 42, they stopped. And in fact, my father used to play games against the Cubs when he was growing up there. He was born there too. And he was 18, 19, 20, 21. And, you know, they needed competition in spring training. So the local boys would play the Cubs on Cub Field, which I grew up playing baseball on. And I've been a baseball fanatic my whole life, and I just wanted to be Mickey Mantle. I was born in 1950, so I looked at the New York Yankees around that time with Maris and Mantle, and they had, and I think it was 1957. They did the movie with Maris and Mantle, possibly 2 of the worst actors of all time, but they were in this, in a movie together, and. I remember playing on Cub Field and dreaming of being Mickey Mantle, and that dream stayed alive for a long time. But as I was growing up there was only 16 guys in my class, 31 kids total in my graduating class in Avalon High School. 28 of them I went to kindergarten with. So we were like brothers and sisters, and we had a little theater, and we had a drama teacher and a drama class. If you wanted to be, in my little school, if you wanted to be the lead in the school play, there was no competition. I was the lead in every school play. Why I wanted to be that, I don't know. I liked the attention. My parents tell me that even as a 3 or 4-year-old, I was making up songs, and I remember as a 4 or 5-year-old, I had this rack above my bed, and I had a different hat on each one of the pegs. A fireman's hat, and a painter's cap, and a baseball cap, and my father's boat captain cap, and all these different things. And every morning on my way to kindergarten, I would decide who I was going to be that day. And at the time, I thought it was, nobody said, "Oh, that's kind of strange." At the time, I just thought it was fun. But looking back, I go, that's kind of a clue that you liked taking on roles and you liked pretending to be someone else. And I loved movies, and I sat in that casino theater, the big casino ballroom in Avalon. It was the first movie theater built for sound in America, in the world actually, that Wrigley had ordered, and I would watch movies from the front row, and it was magic. I remember watching, my whole peripheral vision was filled, and I remember thinking, this is such magic. These people are magicians. They're making me feel things out of nothing. That's magic. And so take that into 1965 when they shot a movie in Catalina called The Glass Bottom Boat on my dad's boat. It was my dad's boat.
No kidding.
And the movie starred Doris Day and Rod Taylor, and Arthur Godfrey played my father. Well, played the captain of the glass bottom boat. And my father would do the stunt driving for him and stuff. And so they shot a scene on my boat, and one of many scenes they shot on the boat. And I remember the day, 1965, I was 15. And I was about 10 feet away by the steering wheel of the boat with my dad, watching them shoot at the tail end of the boat, and I'm only 10 feet away. And Rod and Doris are playing a scene, and first time I'd ever been that close to it on a set. And I saw Doris blow a line, drop the F-bomb, and
Doris Day?
And to do it again. I couldn't believe it. That she could drop an F-bomb, Doris Day, or that you could say, nah, let's do it again. And they would just, okay, let's go again. Slate it, shoot it. And that moment was the epiphany for me. I knew from that day on. I went, that's not magic. They just do it again till they get it right. This little piece becomes a part of a puzzle. You put them all together, you got your movie, the magic is made. I can do that. And I remember that moment so precisely, like it was yesterday. And I just, I knew that for the rest of my life, that is what I would be doing or trying to do. It wasn't maybe I'll do it or anything. It was, nope, that's what I'm doing. That all, if it's possible for a mere human to do it instead of some magician, then it's possible for me. And I knew that that was going to be it for the rest of my life.
She's no longer here, so I'll never get a chance to interview her, although I met her once. What was she like? What memories do you have of Doris Day? I just got to ask.
Interestingly, earlier that day, or maybe it was a previous day, because they were shooting in town for a couple, 3 weeks, they had to go shoot on the boat, and I was 15, and in Avalon they only have golf carts. So they said, somebody needs to go pick up Miss Day from her hotel, which was called the Malibu Inn, way up in the back of town. And my dad said, Greg's not doing anything, he can do that. And I got in this golf cart and went up to the Malibu Inn, and they had given me a room number, and I remember going down to see the room number and knocking on the door, and the door opened, and a woman answered, and I said, hi, I'm here to pick up Doris Day to take her down to the set. And she said, yeah, that's me. Good, I'll jump in. Didn't look anything like Doris Day that I knew. But then I took her down in the golf cart, and she was very nice. And then about an hour and a half later, she comes out to the boat, and they're getting ready to shoot. She just looked like Doris Day. And I realized, that's some of the movie magic, too, that I'm going to have to learn about. Not just for women, for men as well. Toupees started showing up that weren't on when they walked onto the, into the set. There's just so much movie magic that it's a learning curve. But she was sweet and very nice and very grounded, and I love that she dropped an F-bomb, and probably many more than one. And she was down to earth. The crew seemed to enjoy her, and I mean, at that point, 1965, she was still playing hard to get virginal characters, and she was probably 40, 45, I don't know, at the time.
I think it was Oscar Levant who said of her, I knew Doris Day before she was a virgin.
Right.
I think it was him. Well, I know about Hollywood movie magic, too, because I watched you in For Women Only, For Ladies Only.
For Ladies Only.
Yeah. Any magic in that?
Yeah, the magic that I look like I might be able to dance. I've never been a good dancer, but when it's pretty much just a bunch of bumping and grinding, I guess I was able to, with choreographic help, I was able to accomplish that. It was a really fun movie, 1981. It was the first, I had just created my company, Catalina Productions, because I had my first big hit. Trevor John M.D. had given me the power to get into anybody's office and pitch a project. So as my first production, I pitched For Ladies Only, and sold it without a script. And then we spent the next 6 months writing a script, developing the story, writing a script, and then shooting the movie, and it became the most successful movie at that point up until that time.
I don't think there'd been anything much like it up until that time.
No, there had not. And it really was right up against the rules and regulations of censorship. But I had a lot of fun shooting it, and I was about to get married, and so Randi would say, "What are you shooting today?" You know, well, my love scene with Lee Grant. No, I'm going to go strip in front of 500 women today. All right, have fun. Keep it on the set. Keep it on the set. She's up until about 10 years ago, when I apparently aged out of having active romances on film, she would always say, "Keep it on the set."
Well, I read one quote attributed to you, and I may get it wrong, but it was something like, "I didn't go to school for 9 years to learn how to become a hunk," or something to that effect.
I probably said that. Yeah, I said something like that.
Some people come by it naturally. You're one of them. What was your first big break? What do you consider your first big break?
I've had so many big breaks and lucky breaks. Well, probably that I was in an acting class. I was in Estelle Harmon's actors workshop. You remember Estelle Harmon?
I remember seeing a sign. I think it was on Melrose or Hollywood Boulevard.
La Brea and Melrose, yeah. Estelle was really good acting teacher. She was teaching most of the people that were on the Universal's player program, Universal Player. They would have actors for $200 a week, but you'd be getting your $200 a week, and then they'd use you in every show that they made at Universal. She was the coach for all those people, and so she took the GI Bill, and I had just gotten out of the Army, so I went to Estelle's, and I studied there for about 3 years, and in the third year, somebody came in, 2 18-year-old kids came in who had won a Super 8 film contest at UCLA that Charles Champlin had been, who was the Times critic and head culture, movie culture writer, had judged and said, "If you ever do anything, let me know. I'll come take a look at it." So their father, who had some money, I think he was a real estate guy or something, and he gave him $100,000, and he said, "Go make your own movie." So for $100,000, they planned on making a feature film called Jim the World's Greatest. Actually, at the time, it was called Story of a Teenager. And they went around to the different acting schools in LA and asked every acting coach, who are your best male students here? And when they got to Estelle's, she said, well, we're having a class tonight. And I'd been there almost 3 years by that time. I had never worked, didn't have an agent, wasn't in the union, still pounding the pavement, wasn't looking for an agent. I was just learning my craft, happily. And she said, we have a class tonight. Come and you'll see some scene work. And they came and they saw me do a scene. I don't even remember what it was or who it was with. And afterwards they said, will you star in our movie? And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, we're going to shoot a movie on the weekends for a year. We're going to rent the camera equipment and lights on a Friday night, take it back Monday morning, so we only have to pay for 1 day for the rental. And we're going to shoot it in Long Beach, which is where they lived, Bixby Hills in Long Beach. We're going to shoot it in Long Beach, and we don't have any money to pay you, but you'll be the star of the movie. And they showed me the script, and I said, yeah, why wouldn't I? And then we did that for a year. We would go to work. I would go to work Friday evening in Long Beach, and we would work without sleep, maybe in cat naps, but without sleep until Monday morning. And then crash heavy till like Wednesday, and then start prepping for the next Friday to Monday grind. And so every week was like 1 day's cost for them for all the equipment. And after a year, we had a movie. And, I had never done anything, and nor had most of the people in the film, but it was a touching script. A guy named Sid Sheinberg was the president of Universal. This movie was about a kid, a senior in high school, who's taking care of his little brother. His father's an alcoholic. Happens that Sid's story was like that. He was the president of Universal. Charles Champlin took a look at the film, wrote this great article about it and me, and put it on the cover of the calendar section, raving about my performance and about the movie in general. Showed it and insisted that Sid, who he knew, take a look at it. Sid said, "That's my story." And he said, "We're buying this film." So it became a feature film at Universal. He said, "But it's so bad in spots, we're going to have to reshoot half of it." That got me in the union. Sid's article got Joan Scott of Scott and Smith Associates, a very influential agency, to call me at home to say, "Are you represented?" And I said, "No." And so she became my agent. It was like, that was my big break. And suddenly I had an agent, I was in the union, I was shooting a film at Universal, and I was only going in on leads. So I sort of I pretty much missed that whole section of slowly working your way up through bits and guest stars and all that to potentially starring in things. But I had spent years developing my craft. So I was ready.
Well, it can take a long time to get to that point.
Yes. But I was ready because I had done the work. But it was a lucky break. I mean, it was just such a lucky break. So many aspects of that were just a lucky break. And I've always, I've always loved that phrase, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I was prepared, and the opportunity came, and I grabbed it with both hands, and things worked out. Knock wood, I'm still working.
Today is so much different than that. Kids don't need a father who's a real estate agent to get the money to make. They can do it on their iPhone.
They can do it on their iPhone and post it online for virtually nothing. And talent is rising to the top there too, And just like back then, sometimes people get up there and they're not ready, and they're a one-time, a one-hit
trick
wonder,
pony, yeah,
one-trick pony, and but they get thinned out, and so it's different, but it's not different. I mean, I still think the cream rises to the top. Occasionally, bad apples, ruin the whole bunch. But how many more cliches can I throw in there? But I still love the business. I have a daughter who's in it, who just got a feature film made that she's co-starring in, and she wrote, and I'm in it, and so it goes on. Evolution.
Well, you weren't an ape at any time.
I have a few times in my life been there, but we shouldn't talk about that.
Back with more in a moment. If you'd like to be more involved with us at Still Here Hollywood, you definitely can. Just visit patreon.com/stillherehollywood. You can support us for as little as $3 a month. You can get our episodes a day before they post anywhere else. You can see what guests will be coming up and submit questions for them. You can even tell us what stars you want us to have on as guests. You'll see what goes on before and after the episode, plus exclusive behind-the-scenes info, pics, video, and more. Again, that's patreon.com/stillherehollywood. You were also you said you were in the Army?
Yeah.
As a medic, right?
Helicopter medic. I was a conscientious objector, so I didn't carry a weapon. And
it was during Vietnam, right?
During Vietnam.
But you didn't go there,
70,
did you?
71, no, because they couldn't, because I was a non-religious applicant for a conscientious objection. And that was not recognized and never been approved in the history of the country. So I was trying to set a new precedent, and they wanted to get me out of the country, so they sent me to Germany, and I spent 2 years, 7 months flying missions in Germany, picking up soldiers and dependents and dealing with that. But eventually I did win. I did become the first non-religious conscientious objector based on morality, and changed the Army regulation so that others could follow, and many have in that. Mm-hmm. So before I was even 21, I had done something that had tested me and tested my mettle. So Hollywood wasn't as frightening to me by the time I got out of the Army and had won this case and been through hell. I mean, the Army was hell for me. They made sure it was. People would say, Hollywood's snake pit. Are you sure you're ready? Yeah, I'm not worried about Hollywood. I can handle it. You know, I've been down, and I'm not afraid of being down, and I'm there for the long run. So it wasn't as scary to me as it was to most. I didn't go into Hollywood with a time limit.
Are you glad you did?
That I went to Hollywood?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm the luckiest man alive. Are you kidding me? Yes. I'm so grateful for my life. I'm so grateful for everything that's happened to me. I wouldn't trade a second of any of it, you know. And I've had downs. I'm a recovering addict. I've made a lot of mistakes, but they've all taught me. And my greatest strength, I think, is that I often, when I come to a fork in the road, I often take the wrong fork, take the wrong direction, but I'm really good at discovering it and making my way back and taking the other one. I'm good at backtracking to point wherever and getting back on the right track. And I've been doing that my whole career, both professionally, personally, spiritually, you name it. I'm really good at backing up and starting over, not afraid to reevaluate and make some changes. That's my greatest strength. I think that's why I still have a career, actually. And I'm married, too. I'm 45 years married.
Which is an accomplishment. Did you... I hope you don't mind my asking this, but about addiction. I'm an addict as well. Did Hollywood have anything to do with it? I tell people Hollywood was good to me, provided me with a great job and great income for a long time, but it wasn't good for me. There were some things that were a little too accessible for my level of willpower.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, I remember Robin Williams said once that cocaine was God's way of telling you make too damn much money.
Yes. Yep.
So, yeah, I was making $100,000 an episode in the 80s, and I put $1 million up my nose, and it took me 9 years to finally get on my knees and admit that I wasn't in control of my life anymore. Not to get religious, but just to get humble. Just to get humble and say, I need help. And I don't blame Hollywood for that. I could have been a lawyer. I could have been a politician. I had interest in all those things. A lot of interest. I would have made money doing something, you know. I'm one of the most privileged people in the world. I was born white, male, 1950, middle of the 20th century, North America. That checks every box for a lottery winner. And the world was my oyster. I just could choose what I was going to be, and I could make that happen. I'm one of those few people. I was just born with luck. But I recognized that privilege, and I'm grateful for it, but I also recognize that a lot of people don't have that privilege, and now I'm I've always been trying to help others who don't have the privileges that I have, and I don't take any of it for granted, ever. So if it wasn't Hollywood, something else would have tested me. You know, I was going to be successful at something. I really believe that. And I just decided it was going to be, the show business.
I went through rehab 3 times.
3 times?
Before it took.
30-day sessions?
Yes.
Yeah, 3 30-day sessions.
Yeah.
Can I ask where?
Oh, God. There was a place in Arizona, in Tucson, near Tucson.
Okay.
I forget the name of it. There was a hospital near my home in Chicago. And then another place near my home in Chicago, till it finally, I had enough people saying, "Are you crazy? You know, what do you?" I didn't realize until late how privileged I was. My story reads much the same as yours. I had a minister father who was considering, writing me a conscientious objector letter, to try and get me out of.
What was your religion?
Baptist.
Didn't really qualify. Seventh-day Adventist, Jehovah's Witness, Quaker. I don't know if Baptist would have qualified, but maybe it would have been. I was raised Mormon and gave it up at 13. So I don't know that Baptist would have qualified either. You would have had the battle.
Would have scared them.
It scared them. You would have had the battle that I had. I wanted to. I didn't want to run away. I could have hidden. I could have pretended to be gay. I could have blown a toe off, which I've had a friend who did that. Any number of ways to be 4F and not have to serve. And I love my country, and I believe in it, and I didn't want to do that, but I also didn't want to be a part of a weapon in an unjust war that was unnecessary and illegitimate, and I didn't believe that all the alternatives to violence had been explored, and I don't think any alternatives to violence had been explored for that war, and not much has changed today. But I'm glad you didn't go.
Well, it was the idea of looking down the barrel of a gun, that scared the hell out of me.
So interestingly, that's what most people felt. I didn't worry about that so much. I worried about killing someone. That's what scared me. Was killing someone and living with it. Killing someone for an illegitimate reason and living with it. That guilt is what I was trying to avoid, and what I was fighting to try not to put myself in a situation where somebody's shooting at me, I'm going to shoot back. Don't allow yourself to be in a situation where you're going to kill someone to stay alive. I have a primal instinct to stay alive. I would have used it. I know I would have, given that situation. I didn't want to have to live with that.
I'm not certain I could have done that if I faced with it, the fear. You went to Betty Ford, didn't you?
I did.
I got to interview her once.
Did you?
Yes.
About that?
Yes, at her place.
Yeah, out in Rancho Mirage.
Yes, and she was such a gracious,
one of my great heroes of my life.
An incredible woman.
Yeah.
Just an incredible person.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Good for you. Oh, that's an experience I would have
It
loved.
was an experience. I interviewed her husband, too. Anyway, this isn't about me. It's about you.
It's a conversation.
Okay. You're right. And that's the way I like it. Tell me about playing Gonzo. Do people still call you Gonzo?
Every now and then, but most of them are bald, or the ladies have blue hair. I mean, it's that's a generation or two ago,
Facts of life.
Yeah. So the ones that remember me as Gonzo is a niche. Most people nowadays recognize me from, Falcon Crest, One Tree Hill, different shows, that I've done in the interim between then and now.
We'll be back in a moment. Well, tell me about Trapper John and how that came to be, your part in that show.
Well, I think I was pretty much actually, I'd been doing a musical, festival it was called. I'd done it. Remember the Las Palmas Theater on Sunset Boulevard?
Right.
Or was it Hollywood Boulevard?
Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, the Las Palmas. We were doing a musical there called Festival with Brian Stokes Mitchell and Stephanie Zimbalist and I and several other really talented people. We had done it up at ACT in San Francisco for a couple months, and it was making its way to New York, and somebody from casting at 20th Century Fox came to see it, and that's what got Brian and I auditions. They asked to have us come in and audition for Trapper John MD, for this spin-off of MASH. Now, I was in a MASH unit in the Army. I saw the movie MASH in the MASH unit in the Army against a wall. Then I did an episode of MASH in 1975. That was one of the first things that I did. That was after I got that agency and everything. Was I co-starred or guest starred in an episode of MASH, and then 2 years later, 3 years later, I ended up with starring in the spin-off of MASH. So that was sort of a theme through my life, and I didn't realize that all the time I was doing my medical stuff, that I was doing research for a series I'd be doing way down the road. But I got called in because of that musical with Stokes. He goes by Stokes now. It was Brian then, Brian Mitchell. And the two of us went in, and the two of us got those roles. He was Jackpot Jackson, and I was Gonzo Gates. And Christopher Norris, who I had done a little play with in 1974 in a 99-seat Equity Waiver Theater, ended up being Nurse Ripples Brancusi, and then they wanted to, and they locked it in. I think it was the seventh. That was the seventh series pilot that I had auditioned for and come in second on that year. I knew I was due. I was very due, and that's the one I got the part. And then they wanted to cast Trapper. So there was. I auditioned. This is back when they did not audition, screen tested. This is back when they did real screen tests. You'd go in the soundstage, you'd be in full wardrobe, you'd have full crew, you would do a day's work, doing several scenes with all the full lighting and crew and cameras, and then they would study those and take them to the network, and they would study those, and then they would make their decision based on that. It's nothing like that anymore. Now you get cast off of a home video
that you shoot yourself.
Home video that you shoot. But no, they spent real money to do those. And I then, after I was locked in, I tested with about 5 different guys for the Trapper part. And Pernell was head and shoulders. Pernell Roberts was head and shoulders above everyone else. And our chemistry was really good. I think our chemistry, in that we looked very different, and he had a certain gravitas that he only was going to be in about 10 or 12 pages per episode, because he wasn't the young leading hunky guy that I was going to be. But we needed somebody who made a real big mark every episode as the voice of authority, and who had a sense of humor. And Pernell encompassed all that and more. He was such a talented, amazing
He had been
guy.
on Bonanza, right?
He had been on Bonanza for 6 years. 7 years. He had a 7-year contract, and then when his contract expired, he left Bonanza, and all the others stayed. And then, of course, they renegotiated their contracts, and every one of them became super rich and successful from year 7 to 12, or however long it lasted. And I used to ask him, Pernell, we'd be sitting on the top of the Titanic, my motorhome that I supposedly lived in, that Gonzo lived in. And we'd be playing a scene, and we'd be waiting for them to light. And I'd say, Pernell, why did you leave Bonanza? What were you thinking? And he goes, I couldn't call a guy Pa who was only 8 years older than me. I just couldn't do it anymore. I remember my first day on the set of Trapper John, Pernell, and I still don't know if he was really kidding or if he was this arrogant. But he came up and he goes, Kid, listen to me. This stuff isn't that hard. Because the key to good acting is sincerity, and once you learn to fake that, you got it made. And I went, thanks, Pernell. I appreciate that. But I loved working with him. He was a wonderful man.
Do you consider him a mentor?
Well, I don't think so. Not a mentor per se, but he, I learned both positive and negative things from Pernell. He was very moody and incredibly bright and well-spoken, and I loved him between action and cut. He was a challenge between cut and action, but only a challenge in a good way. He was not an easy person, but he was generous and smart and very funny when he wanted to be. But he brought in a rain cloud over his head on certain days, And the whole set was damp all day long. He was very influential. He was charismatic, and what he brought in the door is what we all had to deal with all day. And there's a lot of big stars that are like that. There's a lot of very talented people who do that in our business. Big personalities. And they influence everything around them. The kind of people that walk in a door and the whole essence of the room changes, And Pernell was like that. He was that big.
I think that can be unintentional sometimes.
Oh, I don't think it was an intentional thing. It's just who he was. And I loved him, But I'm not going to pretend that he was perfect. He wasn't, And some people found him very difficult, and some people just they worshipped him. I was in between those, but I loved him, and I loved working with him. I just loved working with him. The scene work was, I learned things from him that way. When the camera would roll, I would learn lots from him.
We'll be back for more in a moment. Which TV movie role stands out most to you? And why?
Wow. Well, I've only done 55 TV movies, so...
Pick one.
Wow. I did, early on, I did Centennial, which was a mini-series. It wasn't really a TV movie, but it was like 12 TV movies. I was in 12 hours, so 6 TV movies of Centennial. And I played Levi Zent, this central character who builds the town of who starts this town of Centennial, and just about every great actor in America and many from around the world were in that show, and I was at the core of it. So it gave me great credibility in the industry suddenly, and that was a wonderful thing to have. It took me from being he'd been on one season of Logan's Run to, this was just before Trapper John, and from being one season wonder on Logan's Run to, no, this guy's the real thing. He's carrying. I aged from 22 to 78. I was carrying a lot of responsibility in the show, and I was working with with Lynn Redgrave and Tim Dalton and I mean, so many. I can't even begin to list them all. So many incredible actors, and it was some of the best written Americana of all time, based, of course, on one of the great Americana books, Centennial by James Michener. It's still, I don't think there's anything that's been done in the television medium that matches it in terms of its import or its authenticness, authenticity about the American Old West and the development of the West, with all the good and the bad. And so I'm really proud of having been a part of that, and it catapulted me into a different echelon of legitimacy and enabled me to throw my hat in the ring for much better, deeper, more challenging roles and be considered, and get some. It helped propel me. So I really love that. That's one of my favorites.
And what about Falcon Crest? How did that shape your career?
Well, I came in for the last season and killed it off. But it did help shape my career in the sense that it was the first bad guy that I played. I'm not talking a bad guy. That's not even the right word. Horrific guy that I played, but charming. So it enabled me to do something that I have made a career out of ever since, which is to play good guys with a dark side, to play the grays, to play bad guys with charm. I ended up when Lifetime was just strict, all through the 90s, Lifetime movies were women in jeopardy. I was so often cast as, in different ways, as a guy who would ensnare a woman and with my charm, and then turn bad, or she would realize I was bad and have to escape me somehow. And because I'm good at playing those grays, I didn't make her look stupid, because I wasn't an obvious bad guy in the beginning. She wasn't falling for an obvious villain. And that was always important, to keep the leading lady smart. And the women at home going, I probably would have fallen for that guy too. So that was sort of a niche that last year of Falcon Crest created, playing Michael Sharp. And I had such a good time doing it that I pursued bad guys a lot after that. I loved the freedom of it, because when you're playing a good guy, a lot of people are going, I don't know if I do it that way. I don't know if I believe that. When you're playing a bad guy, nobody's saying, "Oh, bad guy wouldn't act like that." They just go, "Oh, bad guy." They don't know.
Stay away from him.
Yeah, so I guess I had a wider parameter of things that I could do. The parameters on the performance were always wider, and I loved having that freedom. Playing a good guy, you have certain pressures, always to try and please everyone, to not offend anyone, to not do anything too edgy, and that's part of the business. You have to adhere to some of these rules as best you can, while still trying to represent your own thoughts and your own creativity. But there are rules and regulations, and so I'm a realist.
You got to toe the line.
Yeah, not always. I mean, I always push. Excuse me. I always push against the line, but it only goes so far before it breaks.
Until your better sense kicks in.
Yeah.
You got to do this.
Yeah. You got to choose your battles.
Yeah, you do. What's the best career advice you've ever been given?
I don't know. That's. I don't know that I've ever listened to anyone's advice. So
Really?
yeah, because so many people. It's like I don't read reviews. I don't read the good ones. I don't read the bad ones. I don't want to be influenced by them. I am my own best judge of my work. An audience will tell me in a theater. It will tell me if it's working or not. My own sensibilities will tell me if this is honest or dishonest. So I don't listen to advice artistically. Career-wise, I don't belong to any clubs. I don't, sort of that Groucho thing about any organization that would have me as a member isn't an organization I want to be a part of. I'm not afraid to self-assess. Honestly self-assess, cruelly self-assess. I was always really good, and this is where I learned the technology for my career that's helped me. Even right from my first job, I would go sit in the room and watch dailies the next day, back when there was such a thing as dailies. And the next day you'd go in and see what you shot the previous day. And I would sit there and I could watch my performance as if it weren't me. And I could judge what had happened, and I could assess my performance as if I were a separate human being, watching that. And break it down and approve this and say, oh, that didn't work. Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, you should have hit your mark there. That's why you're not in focus. I mean, you stood in that person's light. Oh, they're standing in your light. It's like learning from all that stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I when I hear about advice, people ask me for advice. People with kids and stuff. I've done a lot of shows with young children, and parents say, well, Tommy really wants to pursue acting. What do you suggest? I suggest that if there's anything else that he wants to do in his life, he should do that, because it's very unusual for someone to be successful. And unless you can't imagine anything else, you should do something else. I couldn't imagine anything else, you know? And then the advice that Betty Davis, you know, somebody asked Betty Davis, what's the best advice you can give to someone who wants to work in Hollywood? She said, take Fountain.
Take Fountain. One of my favorite quotes.
Yeah. So, I don't know that advice is really, it's flavored with so much personal experience from each advisor that I don't know that it's applicable, you know, and not just in acting. I mean, I'm pretty much like that in my day-to-day life, you know. I don't ask for much advice. I try to think things through and assess things on my own and absorb as much information and make wise choices if I can, or take that wrong path and then work my way back and realize I've made a mistake and have to go another direction.
Just now, word came that Diane Keaton has died.
Oh.
At age 79.
Oh.
Did you ever meet her or know her?
No,
or
I didn't.
Any observations?
Wow. It just seems like every few days another one of my peers drops. She's, she was such a huge part of possibly the two best movies of all time, The Godfather and Godfather 2, and she had a huge career besides that, but that was her most iconic performances, I think, and of course her Woody Allen movies.
Annie Hall.
Annie Hall. But she had a great career. She had a singular signature style and presence that no one else could approach. She was a unique entity in the world, and the camera loved her, and she was really great with comedy, and she understood how to humanize comedic moments and make you cry and laugh at the same time. So I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I think unique is a great word to describe her career and how she approached her work. I just had to ask you since that came up.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear it.
Looking back, which of your TV projects do you wish had gotten more attention or didn't get the attention it deserved?
You know, I did a miniseries with Carol Burnett called Fresno.
Oh, yeah.
Where she played, this is a couple of years before I did Falcon Crest, where she played the matriarch of a grape vineyard where the grapes were so bad that it made its living off of raisins. and so she was a raisin baroness. And Charlie Grodin, Dabney Coleman, Terry Garr, who am I forgetting? Oh, we had Michael Richards was in it before Seinfeld. Oh God, so many people, so many great comedians and comedians that were in it. It was a 5-night miniseries without a soundtrack, and it was basically a satire of Falcon Crest. Falcon Crest was huge at the moment, so it was sort of satirizing that. And of course, it took place in Fresno, you know, not in Sonoma County where all the great grapes were. And it was so hilarious. And the network aired it in a weird way. And because the footage was all so good, there was a 4-night miniseries when we shot it, with beginning, middle, and end of each episode very clearly defined. But apparently in the editing room, they went, oh, we can't get rid of that. See, you know, they'd have to trim it down so that each night, 4 nights. No, they said, no, we're going to turn it into a 5-night, which was the biggest mistake you can make. You got to kill your darlings, you know, when you're in the editing room. You got to say, I know, I love that scene, but it's too much. You know, we need to tighten. They didn't do that, and it ended up it just confused people. And they were waiting for the laugh track, and there wasn't one. And because they didn't tighten all the scenes as much as they should have by eliminating that last couple hours of film that they found so precious, and it didn't get the reaction. Now, looking back, I recently saw it. I have copies of it at home on disc, but I saw it recently aired, and it's still hilarious. I mean, it's just hilarious. But it never got the attention or the appreciation that I thought it deserved. It was really, but it did allow me to get to become dear friends with Carol and Charlie and Dabney Coleman and Terry. I worked with Terry a lot in it, but we didn't all stay close. But Carol and I have, and so I've always appreciated it for that.
Yeah, I got to interview her once, and she was terrific.
Yeah.
Just as I expected her to be.
Absolutely.
Probably same for you.
Yeah.
Just
absolutely.
what you expected.
Yeah.
You've been married to actress Randi Oakes for 45 years. You met on the set of...
Are you going to finish that sentence?
I know this. Oh, Battle of the Network Stars.
There you go. There you go.
Hey.
Battle of the Network Stars. Now, talk about a flimsy way for a 45-year marriage to begin. She was in spandex, and the water was cold, and that was all it took. It was lust at first sight, and somehow a year later, that lusty first meet had turned into the deepest friendship of my life, and we've been married for 45 years.
Is there a secret? Back with more in a moment.
Well, they say absence makes the heart grow fonder, and I've been gone at least half the time in our marriage, so maybe that's true. She does not complete me. I do not complete her. She is completely fine on her own, self-sufficient, and doesn't need me to complete her. I compliment her. She compliments me. So there's not that pressure and constant need for reassurance and revalidation of our relationship and all that. So that may be part of it. I think those are all healthy traits, but I don't know if that's the key. Partly it's that I grew up in a home that my parents got divorced when I was 11, and they should have gotten divorced probably before I was born, and I decided I won't ever make those mistakes again. So I waited a long time to get married, sowed my oats, so did Randi. We were both sluts in the 70s.
It was the thing to do. Everybody was doing
Everybody
it.
was a slut in the 70s. Penicillin cured everything. So that was healthy. I think that we had figured out what we didn't want prior to that. And we were both ready at that moment. She was 30, I was 31 when we met. We were ready to find that person that that would work for us. It wasn't all about passion all the time. It wasn't, if you weren't loving, you were fighting. That had those relationships. I needed a friend. I needed somebody that I could be passionate with, but who I liked, and who I trusted, and who I could rely on. And then you say actress Randi Oakes, she quit acting in 1985. So she's not, to me and to the world, she's not an actress. She was for a few years. She was a very successful model for a few years, and then she came to Hollywood. She was so beautiful and perky. The camera loved her, and she got she became one of the Universal players for a year or two. Did a few episodes of different shows, and then got cast in. Actually, she played a car thief on Chips one week. They looked at her dealing with Eric and Larry, and the next week offered her a different role in the show as a cop, because she's the only girl who had come onto the set that could handle Eric and Larry, you know, and they needed handling, and she was no nonsense and didn't take any of their intimidating stuff, and they were big stars and they knew it, and they were doing the same thing I was doing. They were, you know, snorting coke, you know, or whatever, drinking as much as anybody could and still remember their lines. We were all doing that in the late 70s. And so they hired her to be a regular on the show, and she spent years doing that. And we met because of that, because Chips was NBC and I was on CBS, and a year later we were married, and then she worked a little bit as an actress after that, but when we had our first kid in 1985, she went, "Oh, this is what fulfillment feels like. I've never felt this." And she didn't care about acting. She never studied much. She barely knew how to do it, had no appreciation for the nuances of acting, and didn't much like actors. I don't know what that says about me, but
it's that charm.
Yeah. But she said, "I'll make you a deal." We were married by then, and she goes, "Okay." I had her first kid finally, and she goes, "This is what fulfillment feels like. Okay, here's the deal. I will raise our kids, and because I love that, and you can continue to do what you love, but I will make sure that you're present even when you're not here. That the kids will never think that you're absent. They will never feel like you know, deprived because of your absence. And I will represent for you, and I will, so you can go off and do what you love, guilt-free, and I'll make sure you're participating." And she said, "Is that a good deal?" And I said, yeah. And we literally shook on it. And we have 4 children. None of them felt deprived. None of them, looking back, they all, I guess because I grew up with a father who often went off on sea voyage. He was a boat captain. You know, I didn't think he didn't love me because he was gone. He was doing what he loved, you know? And I admired that. And that's what my kids grew up feeling.
What are your kids' ages?
My oldest daughter's 39, Emma. Lily's 36. Kate's 34. Quinn's 34. Yeah.
Are Kate and Quinn?
Quinn. No,
are they twins?
Quinn I adopted.
Oh.
He's 3 months younger than Kate.
Good for you.
Kate's a model, but she's studying at Harvard to become a psychologist in her 3rd year, and modeling still, getting, you know, she's modeled all over the world for 16 years.
Brains and beauty, huh?
She's beautiful. She's like supermodel beautiful, and I was very happy to have attended about a month ago her wedding to the love of her life, Chloe Grace Moretz, the actress, about a month ago up in Colorado, and they're very happily married. And then Lily, as I said earlier, she wrote a screenplay of the rom-com, which is now in post-production. Peter Facinelli is her man and the father of my grandson, and Peter directed. We shot it in Toronto. Lily co-starred in it with Seth Green and Ashley Green and a bunch of others. Matt Walsh, a whole bunch, and Natasha Leggero, a bunch of really great people, and it's very funny. And Lily, I've made 4 movies, or I've worked with 4 times. One of them was on General Hospital, where she worked a week or 2 on General Hospital, and that was really fun. And I was on it for 3.5 years. In fact, Friday I'm going to the Emmys because I was nominated.
Yay, good for you.
Yeah, for General Hospital. Daytime Emmys.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
No, I'm shocked, actually. In all my career, my wonderful, satisfying, amazing career, I have never been nominated for an Emmy. So, you know, I waited until I was in my 70s to do a soap, and somehow, I guess I ate the furniture enough that they voted for me.
Well, maybe you learned to spit it out, too. You mentioned you're in your 70s, so am I. Have you noticed anything about...
wait, 1 second. I don't want to short circuit my daughter, Emma. She is up in Portland, and I have 2 granddaughters by her, beautiful little 6 and 4-year-old granddaughters. And Emma's online virtual bookkeeper, and that allows her to be a great mom too. So that's my other daughter.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. Being in your 70s, have you noticed any changes in your physical being?
Are you kidding me?
No.
No. Yes, of course I have noticed many changes.
It's a bitch.
It's interesting, you know. I'm trying to gracefully go into that space of having to pace myself and face my limitations, physical limitations that I never have faced before. I was able to get into my late 60s before my body started to argue with me so loudly that I couldn't argue back. So I was able to surf and golf and river raft and mountain climb and all the things that I love most in the world to take part in. But now I can't do some of those things.
Do you still surf?
I still surf, but I just had 2 new synthetic discs put into my lower back, S1 and L5, and about 9 months ago, and I'm still struggling with the rehab from that to get back to where I can do the pop-up on my surfboard, and I paddle around, but that pop-up, man, it's hard when I'm 75, so it's getting tougher and tougher, and I hope to get back fully so I can do sessions in smaller waves now, but continue. I live on the beach up by Ventura, and I look out and I'm aching to get out there, but I can swim, body surf a little bit, but no, I've had to slow down. I've just had, it's probably the toughest part of getting old for me, is having to limit myself physically. I love getting older in terms of poise, in terms of knowledge and wisdom and perspective, and there's a lot of gifts about getting old. But I've been a very physical jock my whole life, and I've had probably every joint, both knees, my neck, my back, both elbows, my left wrist. I've had everything fixed over the years. I'm bionic basically because I keep doing stuff that hurts me, but I really love doing it. So I'm struggling with that. I mean, I really want to make a trip down to Machu Picchu. I want to do the climb. I don't want to take the train up to Machu Picchu. I want to do the walk for 4 days at 11, 12, 13,000 feet. And with my back, I can't do that now. And I'm hoping, please, that it isn't, that window hasn't shut. So I'm training to try and get back to where I can walk that again and do that.
Thank you very much, Gregory. I've enjoyed this.
I have too.
My brother just fell and had to have 2 vertebrae on his back repaired, and he's confined to the basement of his home until the end of the year. And it's the same thing. We've been talking. We vacationed quite a bit together. But I used to like to walk.
Yeah.
Go on a vacation, you go for a walk across Europe or South America or wherever.
Sure.
And since the stroke, I never know if I'm going to be upright the whole day, you know?
Right. I mean, if I'm whining about my struggle, I'm sure that you could tell me stories.
No. Only if I'm looking for pity.
Yeah, we can't dwell in our pity parties.
We can't. Thank you so much.
Still Here Hollywood is a production of the Still Here Network. All things technical run by Justin Zangerly. Theme music by Brian Sanashin. And executive producer is Jim Lichtenstein.